This is a Madagascar hissing cockroach, and it comes from the island of Madagascar, which is a great big island right next to Africa. This animal lives in the rainforest, and it spends its time crawling around and looking for things to eat. Mostly it likes to eat leaves and plants that have fallen to the forest floor and are laying there, and this guy basically chews them up and turns them into dirt. He doesn't sting, he's not poisonous, so he's not very well protected. To keep himself from getting eaten, this animal has a trick. When an animal tries to eat the cockroach, what he'll do is push air out through tiny holes on the sides of his body, and that does two things. First of all, it makes his body flat. If you've ever tried to pick a dime up off the floor, you know it's hard to pick things up that are flat. Second of all, it makes a loud noise that sounds like tss, tss. And you can imagine if you were about to eat your sandwich and it suddenly made a hissing sound, you would probably drop it. And that's what happens when this guy gets ready, if somebody goes to eat him and he goes tss, it startles the animal into dropping him, and then he can crawl away. This is a Kinkajou. It comes from the rainforests of Central and South America. This guy is a member of the raccoon family. He's the only animal in that family that has this kind of a tail. It's called a prehensile tail, and that means that he can use it to grab things. He can wrap around things like my hand or like a tree branch. He eats birds and rodents, other small animals. This thick fur protects him when he goes to look for honey as well. Kinkajous like to eat sweet things, they like honey, and that fur helps protect them from the insects that make the honey, the bees. If you saw his tongue, that tongue can get to be 18 centimeters long. That's very long, and it's real skinny. And just like his tail, his tongue is prehensile, which means it can grab things. He'll stick his tongue down inside the hole of a log, wrap it around a bug, and pull that bug out and eat it. During the daytime, he has to hide from animals who might eat him. Large cats, large birds. You can feel him if you want. He's got good hearing, really good eyesight at night, excellent strong claws for climbing, and that makes him the perfect animal to live in the rainforest.
This is an iguana. It comes from the rainforests of Central and South America down through Brazil. It is very well equipped to live in the rainforest. It has very long claws, very long digits on its feet to help it climb trees and to stay up in the branches. It has a very long tail, and this tail is also used in defense for the iguana. It will shake it very hard like a whip, and to get whipped with this is just like getting hit with a bullwhip. It's very sharp and very strong. Iguanas can lose part of their tail, probably to about right here, and they can regenerate it. This little flap under his chin right here that he just folded out is called a dewlap. And that's kind of like a built-in air conditioning that iguanas have. If they get overheated, they'll flap that open and the blood can run easier through their body. These scales on his back really are nothing but scare scales. When it gets threatened by a predator, it will stand these straight up to make it look more mean and fierce looking, but other than that, they don't do much of anything. They're pretty soft and lay down flat most of the time. Iguanas can get to be about 6 or 7 feet long from the tip of their nose to the tip of their tail, so he's pretty small, so he's still pretty young. It's not full grown yet.
This is an animal that I bet most of you have heard sometimes, but I'd be willing to bet that none of you have ever seen.
I haven't. I haven't.
Because he is a nocturnal animal. Most of the day, he spends the time sleeping in a hole in the tree. And then at night, he comes out and hunts. And he's a really good hunter. And you know, one of the reasons his hearing is so good is that he has ears that are placed differently than ours. You know, we have one on either side of our head. He has one up here and one down here. So this means that when he hears, he's able to pinpoint where his prey is.
Why do they call him Screech Owl?
Because of that nice mournful sound he makes when he comes out at night. It's a long, low hoot, something like, whoo. Those eyes are also awfully big. You notice how he is able to turn his head almost around? He can turn it about 270 degrees. The reason he has to do that is that his eyes are so large, there's no room for any muscles to move his eyes. So he can't move his eyes in his head the way we can. He has to move his whole head. And he is a raptor. And do you know what raptors catch their food with?
Their claws.
Their claws, right, or talons. And look at those talons, the way they're grasping my finger. If you could see it when it opens up, his talons, instead of closing, you know, like our fingers sort of close like this, his come from all different angles. Would you like to touch him? Very gently. Ooh.
This is a boa constrictor, and it comes from the forests and jungles of Central and South America. And this one's probably about 6 feet. You can see by its skin that it's camouflaged. It hides at the bottom of trees under the roots, and it also hides in small burrows. This animal is cold-blooded, which means that he's about the same temperature as the outside surroundings. You can see its tongue coming out once in a while, and that's how it smells. It'll pick up particles of air and put it inside its mouth on an organ. It's also got heat-sensing pits on the front of its mouth, and with that and its tongue, it can detect when its prey comes by, and it'll capture it, and it'll wrap around it and constrict it so it can't breathe anymore.
How big do they usually get?
They can get up to 20 feet.
Would they ever go back after people?
If they were frightened, they might strike at you, but they wouldn't ever try to eat you. We're much too big for them. You can see that they don't have eyelids. Snakes have scales over their eyes, and so when they shed the scales over their eyes as well. And you can also see that his eyes match the camouflage on his face to keep him hidden. A lot of people are afraid of snakes because they think they're slimy. They look shiny, kind of like fish, and they have scales. But if you feel it, it feels kind of like a basketball.
Can we touch him?
Yes, you can. Snakes are an important part of the ecosystem because they eat lots of small animals, and so it keeps things like rodents under control so they don't get too large of a population.
This is a chinchilla. It comes from the Andes Mountains in South America where it's very cold. So you can see it has a lot of fur covering its body. This will be the softest mammal you will ever touch. Where we have one hair coming out of each follicle on our body, this chinchilla can have anywhere from 60 to 100 hairs coming out of every follicle. It looks like it's just like it's a pretty big animal, but his body around is really probably this big. It's just a big poof ball. He's got all this hair. He's even got hair covering his nose. So he'll twitch his whiskers, which is called wobbling, and that brings the smells closer to his nose so it can detect what's around it. This chinchilla is a rodent, so it's related to a mouse or a rat or a beaver or a porcupine like we have here in the United States. It will eat plants and twigs and roots.
What does he use his tail for?
He'll use his tail for one, to keep him warm. He'll curl up and wrap his tail around his head. And it's a very good jumper. This chinchilla can jump about 8 to 10 feet in one leap. While it was midway in the air jumping, if it wanted to change its direction, it would turn its tail and it could turn around and come back the same direction it came from. They are endangered now in South America because people kept taking them out of the land there to breed for the coats. But they breed very well now in the United States. They have chinchilla farms and people keep them as pets, so they aren't allowed to take them out of the wild anymore.